I imagine this was helpful for some students who did not want to ask for help. I found that to be fairly common, especially as students got into like the late elementary and middle school ages. They didn't necessarily want to look, quote, dumb in front of their peers. So they would often not ask questions that were like good questions or share when they didn't understand something because they didn't want to embarrass themselves in front of their peers. But then if you go into like high school students or even like early elementary, they're generally speaking at an age where they're not as concerned with that. So I'm kind of curious, would this have like made a difference for like kindergartners versus like undergraduate students? But again, that's outside of the scope of this particular study. But that is something that is useful for educators to consider, is that every single age group is going to have some different tendencies in terms of where they might lean towards being comfortable with asking for help or not. And again, going back to like the class example, there were some classes where like there was a norm within it that the teacher made it very comfortable for people to share their misunderstandings or questions that they might have. And then there are other classes where it was much more competitive and they were not willing to share those kinds of things with students, or their peers rather. So depending on what kind of class the homeroom teacher might have, or the teachers that they see throughout the day, like if they're in like a middle school cycle where they have elective classes, etc., that might have an impact on whether or not students are willing or interested in asking for help in the classes that you facilitate. Might have nothing to do with you as an educator when you first start teaching with that group, but it might take months to actually develop the like trust that students are going to have in coming to you for asking for support and whatnot. So just be patient with it and consistent with just like letting students know that like, hey, I'm here to help you out. I'm not here to judge you. I'm still learning as a computer science educator about how to do this kind of stuff, so let's learn together. If that's the general vibe that you have, then it will pay off in the long run, at least in the experiences that I've had and a lot of the teachers that I've spoken with. This excerpt of the CSKA podcast was from episode 197, which is titled Effects of Automated Feedback in Scratch Programming Tutorials. You can listen to the full episode by searching for the CSKA podcast on your favorite podcast app or by going to jaredoleary.com.